Stand on any street corner in London today, and you'll hear a dozen languages in a matter of minutes. Nearly 40% of the people walking past you were born outside the UK, moving through a sprawling metropolis of 9 million people. You look up, and the skyline reinforces this image of an indestructible, permanent global capital. Ultra-modern glass towers crowd right up against traditional stone walls that have stood for generations. But rewind 2,000 years, and none of this was meant to be here. This exact spot was a desolate, muddy tidal marsh. It was barely inhabited, and strategically useless to anyone except a few invading Roman legions looking for a place to cross the Thames. Between that muddy riverbank and the steel skyline we see today, this city was leveled by invasion, hollowed out by plague, and burned to ash, abandoned for centuries. London didn't quietly endure these disasters. It used them. Every time the city was wiped off the map, it triggered a massive reinvention, forcing the survivors to adopt, rebuild, and pull in new people to lay the next foundation. The Romans established Londinium in 43 AD as a bustling trading post. 17 years later, Queen Boudica of the Iceni tribe marched her army in and burned it to the ground. Dig beneath the modern streets today, and you can still find a thick layer of red ash from that first total destruction. The Romans responded by rebuilding much larger, surrounding the new city with a massive defensive perimeter. Parts of this layered stone and brick construction are still standing 2,000 years later. When Rome's empire crumbled in 410 AD, they pulled their legions out of Britain. Without Roman trade networks, Londinium's economy collapsed overnight. A city of 50,000 people dwindled to a few hundred squatters living among the ruins. This map of early settlements illustrates a massive retreat. Arriving Saxons avoided old Roman structures entirely, building a farming village downriver. But when violent Viking raids pushed inland, they abandoned their new town, moving straight back inside ancient Roman walls for defense. The threat of annihilation locked the city back into its original footprint. The modern financial district sits exactly where it does today because 9th century farmers needed to hide behind 1st century Roman brickwork. By the Middle Ages, the population was booming again, but the infrastructure couldn't handle it. Houses were built of timber and thatched roofs, packed so tightly that upper floors nearly touched across narrow alleys. Open fires burned inside every home. In 1348, ships carrying plague-infected rats arrived at the docks. Within 2 years, up to half the city's population was dead. The sudden labor shortage meant the surviving commoners could demand better wages and conditions, terrifying the ruling class as workers discovered their collective leverage. Then came a hot, dry summer in 1666. A spark in a Pudding Lane bakery caught the wind, and the fire spread faster than anyone thought possible. For 4 days, the flames consumed the dense wooden neighborhoods. 85% of the walled city was destroyed. With over 13,000 houses gone, the city had no choice but to change how it built. Authorities implemented strict new building regulations. Timber and dried straw were out. New structures had to be constructed from far more fire-resistant brick and stone. Christopher Wren's new St. Paul's Cathedral, which took 35 years to complete, dominated the rebuilt skyline. Its massive stone facade and iconic dome became the ultimate symbol of a city that had traded its flammable medieval shell for heavy masonry. The Great Fire effectively cleared away centuries of flawed, dangerous urban planning in a matter of days. By upgrading its physical hardware, the city was ready to safely scale its population and absorb the wealth of a growing empire. The Industrial Revolution pushed London to over 6 million residents by 1901. Banks, shipping companies, and trading houses brought immense wealth into places like Mayfair. A few miles away in the East End slums, people crammed into desperately overcrowded tenements, dying of easily preventable diseases. The river became a dumping ground for millions of people. During the Great Stink of 1858, the Thames was so polluted that Parliament had to shut down its sessions. This breaking point forced engineers to carve out a massive, subterranean network of Victorian sewers to channel the waste away, infrastructure the city still relies on today. Less than a century later, bombs rained down from the sky. During the Blitz between 1940 and 1941, German aircraft struck the city almost every night. Entire neighborhoods were leveled to the ground, and by the end of the war, 1 million buildings were damaged or destroyed. When the dust settled, the UK was financially exhausted. The city was full of rubble, food rationing would continue for another decade, and the vast global empire that had funneled wealth into London for 2 centuries was rapidly declaring independence. Stripped of its imperial revenue streams and physically broken, the capital hit rock bottom. To survive the post-war era, it would need the most complete social and economic reconstruction in its history. How do you rebuild a shattered metropolis when the national treasury is empty and your overseas colonies are gone? The physical destruction of the war left an immense amount of work to be done, from clearing rubble to staffing the new national welfare state. The local workforce alone couldn't handle the scale of the recovery, creating a massive labor vacuum that drew people from across the globe. The arrival of passengers from the Caribbean aboard the Empire Windrush in 1948 initiated a crucial rescue. They were followed by massive waves of immigration from South Asia, Africa, and Eastern Europe, refilling the city's depleted population. Neighborhoods reduced to craters and abandoned docks were physically rebuilt by these new arrivals. They transformed neglected areas into the vibrant markets, cultural hubs, and global communities that define modern boroughs today. London's endurance doesn't come from its brickwork or its monuments. It comes from a historical cycle that spans millennia. Every time the walls collapse, the fires burn, or the bombs fall, the city creates space for something new, drawing in people from every corner of the planet to build the next iteration.